Emilia, breaking cycles and finding light. Welcome back to 34O, the podcast where we explore intimacy, vulnerability, and the quiet revolutions that happen between two people who dare to stay. This is the final part of Emilia's story, and we will have more Shavit joining and giving her perspective on Emilia's journey. We've seen her grow from a child in shadows to a young woman searching for love in all the wrong places. And now we follow her through France, new loves, loss, and the slow process of healing. We will go through part 4, The Way Out into the World, Men, Freedom, and Old Patterns. Part 5, Jerome, Security, Scent, and Restlessness. Part 6, Lisa, Fire, Desire, and Broken Mirrors. Part 7 to 9 is between the charts of searching, self-sabotage, and the vision of the future. Part 4, The Way Out into the World, Men, Freedom, and Old Patterns. When Emilia was 20, she packed her bag and left Sweden. She had always felt a restless longing, even as a child. She and her friends had planned to run away from home to discover the world, and now it was happening. She went to North Carolina in the US as an au pair and stayed for over a year. A new language, a new culture, and a home that for the first time wasn't shaped by the chaos she had grown up in. There she began to breathe at her own pace. But she still carried something inside her, a pull towards the fire, towards the things that weren't still. When she returned to Sweden, it was as if she was already too big for the place she had left behind. Freedom had given her a taste for more. She dreamed of living outside the norm, away from the predictable. She came into contact with a Norwegian woman who ran a restaurant in Cervinia, a ski resort in the Italian Alps. But at that time there were no vacancies, so Emilia stayed in Sweden for a while longer. And during that time she started dating Matt, a musician in Stockholm. He was creative, emotional, they had a good thing going. But when he ended the relationship, it was as if something inside her was already slipping away. She turned back to Asmir, her old lover. One last dance. Sexually they were a good match. He was dominant, physical, generous. With him she could feel, enjoy, let go. But the relationship had no future, just lust. Then came the call from Cervinia. The Norwegian woman offered her a job at a club. Emilia said yes without hesitation. She was ready to take the plunge, and she did. Italy became a whirlwind. Cervinia was snow-covered mountains, late nights, laughter echoing between the slopes, and the club where she worked. It was a party every night. There was wine, movement, the feeling that nothing could tie her down. And that was where she met Jon, a man from the south of Sweden, secure, stable, present. He wanted her, for real. But it became too much, too accessible. Emilia didn't know what to do with someone who saw her without the game, without the struggle. It became too close, too quiet. Instead, she chose Stefano, the bartender, a guy with jet black eyes, a smile that promised danger, a tattoo on his neck, and hands that smelled of drugs and other women. He wasn't safe, not stable, but he felt familiar. He reminded her of the parties of her childhood. Men coming and going, smoke filling the room, desire flickering across her mother's face. This was what Emilia had learned to call love. The thing that chafed, the thing that burned. She stayed in Italy for almost 8 months. She went skiing, worked late nights, lost herself, and found herself in the same breath. There was something about the mountains, about the blood of her Serbian ancestry, that made her not want to leave. She wanted to stay, to build a life here. For the first time, she felt she might belong somewhere. But life had other plans. Part 5. Jerome, Security, Scent, and Restlessness. She was ready to start a new chapter in Rome. She had paid the registration fee for interior design school, but before moving, she wanted to experience something else, something unpredictable. That's when Jerome showed up. A Frenchman in his 40s, handsome but relaxed, with friendly eyes and a smile that felt unexpectedly genuine in the club world she worked in. He was on vacation with some friends and they exchanged glances at the bar. When he left, he didn't leave a phone number, just an email address and an invitation. Come visit me in France before you go to Rome. Emilia couldn't resist. She went together with a friend. They spent a few days in Saint Tropez, partying, enjoying the sea, late nights. But it wasn't just decadence. Jerome was different. He was calm, no mind games, no jealousy, no drama, just presence. She went home, but couldn't get him out of her mind. She went back alone. And the second time she was there, she felt, I can live here. So she moved in, 23, maybe 24 years old, young, brave, or maybe just thirsty for a different kind of life, a quiet life. They lived in the countryside in southern France. Vineyards, markets, the scent of lavender and earth. She didn't speak a word of French when she arrived, but she learned. She started importing jewelry and selling it at the market. She blended in. She created her everyday life. Jerome was 17 years older, and with him came something she wasn't used to: stability. There were no storms, no constant struggle for attention. He saw her, he listened. He was spiritual, had been on an inner journey and seemed to be grounded in something deep. After the first time, he cried. For him, it wasn't just sex, it was a meeting. But for Emilia, something was missing. It started subtly, a feeling in the background, like the scent of something you can't identify, but which still bothers you. And that was exactly it. It's a scent. It didn't suit her. She felt it from the very beginning. She ignored it, tried to explain it away. But her body knew. Something wasn't right. Sex became less frequent. She was young, vibrant, horny, and attractive. She was bubbling with energy. Her body wanted more than he was giving her. One evening, she tried to create some magic. She had planned everything: sexy lingerie, candles throughout the house, the dog locked up so he couldn't disturb them. She wanted to seduce him. She wanted to feel desired. She wanted to feel alive. But he wasn't there, not with her, not in her body. And it felt like she was forcing him to have sex. It was an experience she carried with shame, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she had forced herself to close her eyes to what she already knew. After 4 years, it was over. There were no screams, no betrayals, just a growing emptiness, a restlessness she could no longer ignore. She missed the pulse, the sounds, the life of the city. But perhaps most of all, she missed herself. And back home in Sweden, there was a mother who, more than once, had said, he's not right for you. She finally listened, packed her bags, and went home. Part 6. Lisa. Fire, Desire, and Broken Mirrors. After years in France, she was free, but lost. She wanted to go to New York, dreamt of the big city, the pulse, the art. But first it was Linköping. That's where the next chapter took shape. She began studying art history. At the same time, she worked at a short-term residence for people with Down syndrome and other functional variations. It was a meaningful job, full of warmth and presence. But that wasn't where she found her next awakening. It was in another person. Lisa. Androgynous, charismatic, intense, and with an unusual habit: seducing straight women. She had already had two Emilias before this one, and when their eyes met, something ignited immediately. Emilia fell hard. It was like being in an electric field. Her skin vibrated just from being in the same room. Her face turned red. She started to sweat. She felt like a virgin again, lost, curious, terrified, and newly in love. The first time they had sex was tentative, cautious, not particularly remarkable. But the second time, everything exploded. Marathon sex, new orgasms, new zones in her body, in her soul, in her desire. They moved in together quickly, too quickly. Lisa put Emilia on a pedestal, almost as if she couldn't believe she deserved her. And Emilia, who carried her own wounds, let herself be carried away, let herself be loved in what overwhelming way that felt like a rush, but often lacks roots. The relationship became a storm of desire and fear. They loved deeply, but out of insecurity. Jealousy hung like over a cloud over their everyday life. Lisa reacted strongly to men who looked at Emilia. Emilia, in turn, became insecure when Lisa thought contact with her ex, and perhaps even more so when she thought she saw Lisa flirting with her mother, and how her mother flirted back. They lived in a bubble, a relationship that needed to be protected from everything outside, but bubbles can't withstand pressure. Lisa proposed to Emilia on her birthday. It was beautiful, and at the same time, fragile. The last year became increasingly chaotic. Arguments, suspicion, need for control. The security Emilia sought in Lisa turned into a prison. Finally, one night, Lisa took Emilia's phone, locked herself in the bathroom, and started reading messages out loud. She mocked her, questioned her, pressured her. Emilia exploded. She kicked in the glass door. Blood, tears, chaos. They didn't speak after that. A few weeks later, the police called. They were looking for her father. And then something even deeper inside her broke. Her foundation. So, what do you see as the biggest obstacles for men in truly connecting with a woman?
First of all, I want to say that in order for anyone to connect with someone else, a man and a woman, one must be connected to themselves first.
Yeah, we talked about that in some of the previous episodes, that you need self-love, right?
Exactly. Self-love, self-awareness, self-compassion.
Yeah.
I think for men, being connected to themselves and show emotions, which is in the blueprint of men. If we talked about women, they carry shame in an inherited way, and almost all women carried it. So almost all men carry in a similar way shame around feeling itself and being able to show vulnerability itself. So the biggest obstacle for men is truly to first being able to be present with their own emotions, and then to have the brave enough to actually express them and hold them for themselves and for their partner. And so presence is key, but the obstacle is that being present, being with what it is being taught for years and being inherited for men that it's a sign of weakness. And so therefore a lot of men are being disconnected or performing or dominating in a way that they are being avoiding to feel what it is that is alive in them.
And when that happens, what you described, for me, that means that the man doesn't necessarily see the woman or how you create something together. You only focus on actually getting a release yourself in that case, right?
Yes, yes. And again, most of the times it's unconsciousness as well. Not many men arrive with the agenda, I will just think of myself and have sex and calm. A lot of them comes from actually the agenda, I want to prove myself so I will be worthy for her to look at me. And that translate into something very dominant and very powerful and very macho, which leaves both of them drained at the end of this performance.
Yeah. And then it's performance and not presence in one way.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's exactly also where the opportunity to break it is to
Yeah,
bring the presence, to bring the vulnerability, to invite it, to practice it, to communicate it.
yeah.
And this is the gateway to intimacy, to true intimacy.
And in the case of Emilia, she, subconsciously she met both men who were violent, but also men who were stable but felt too close. So how can we understand that dynamic? Because I think she
Mm.
felt like she was reacting differently here, and she also had a relationship
Yeah.
with a woman for a few years as well, right?
Yeah. This is cycling exactly back to the same question we spoke about earlier, where nerve system will always prefer a familiar hell than an unfamiliar heaven. And so universe, the world, will represent with Emilia and with for all of us two sides of same coin. Our blueprint, our current blueprint, and the blueprint that we would like to rewire to be. So for Emilia, it will represent the violent man, which is what she knows, what she is used to, what her nerve system, even though it's a hell, it's a familiar one and therefore drawn to. But it will also represent her with men that are representing the new blueprint that is available for her if she will do the work and will be able to rewire.
Mm.
Before she will do the work and before bringing awareness that this is actually the invitation, this is actually the growth, this is actually what you are longing for, she will need to do work with herself, because with a man that is stable and safe, her nerve system will actually be confused because it's unfamiliar and will look like a threat.
Mm.
I will say it again because this is like so deep, and it's where all the wisdom sits actually. For the outside, it may look like, why am I drawn to this? This is danger. Why can't I be comfortable there? I want the other. But the body, which speaks first, which sends signals to the brain, to the thought patterns, to the story, and creates the reality, is feeling more comfortable in this environment because this is what it knows, and therefore keep on drawing and pulling you back to that environment. And when you are finally being able to taste and try something that you truly long for and want, the body perceive it as a threat
Mm.
because it's the unfamiliar heaven. And so that is giving a thought pattern of too boring, or too much, or too little, or too feminine, or whatever you're making in your mind about a stable man, an honest man, a safe man, which will then make you act on it. Whatever action will it be that will make you
Mm.
withdraw from it? Yeah. And how we can break this cycle again? First, we always need to bring awareness. We cannot heal what we cannot see. Then we need to heal the parts in us that are asking for healing, which for Amelia will be to really land into her body and her nerve system and teach her nerve system and herself what it means to feel safe and loved and complete and whole for who she truly is. And then from that two spaces, we can start create and manifest and rewire our subconscious and create new blueprints, which will then be manifested in our physical world, to the relationship that we want, the career that we want, the partner that we want, the sex that we want, the intimacy that we want, the body that we want, etc.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of summing it up more. So, from a man, from a man's point of view, how can men become better at creating security for a woman without maybe losing their own power or energy, if you will, but creating more of a better balance?
Mm. This is really, really important way of asking as well, Henrik, and I would like to put the light back into your question itself. There is a tie, there is a limiting tie between creating safety for someone else, meaning I will lose something for myself. And this limiting dynamic is not only in safety and power, it's in many, many other things that when I do for someone else, when I create for something for someone else, I may lose for myself. So first I want to unpack that and to reframe it, because when we are doing something that is bigger than us, we are always expanding what is already existing in us. So I would like to reframe that by actually creating safety. If we talk about safety and power, we will deepen the power of us. So we will not lose. This is the first thing that I would like to put the intention and reframe. And now I want to really go deep in why, by creating safety to someone else, a man to a woman, he's actually deepening his power. Because what is truly power? And I'm talking about really the essence of power, not power that lead by control and fear and money in that sense, but power to be really a powerful human being. So the way I see it, power is being able to be in your body with whatever it is that is living in you in the present moment, without bringing the past or the future into the current moment, and being able to see it, feel it, express it, and not collapse into it and not avoid it. So when we are talking about creating safety, if a man is fully present in himself and he's able to hold himself with whatever it is that is going for him, and then holding the feminine, the divine feminine, with whatever it is that is going on for her, without collapsing and without controlling, but truly with presence and being, you become the most powerful masculine that you can be.
I would agree on that. And I think we had a previous episode where we talked about how safety and getting turned on are actually not opposites of each other, but they're prerequisites of each other, requirements of each other.
100%. 100%.
So this is just to underline the need.
And turn on is a very I love turning on. Yeah, I love the language of turning on, but we need to understand that what is truly happen in the biological sense of turning on is the ability to open up.
Yeah.
The ability to open up is when I am fully relaxed in my nerve system, and then all my body is relaxed, which is allowing the feminine to fully open up. And that can happen only naturally, beautifully, when she's feeling safe in the environment. And so for men, it just looks different because it's a different mechanics.
It is, but I just love the analogy of actually there are actually requirements of each other, safety. And
Definitely. Definitely.
Part 7. Between shards and surging, Stockholm, stillness, and a glimmer of light. After Lisa disappeared from her life, and her father was found dead the day before her 30th birthday, everything inside Emilia went silent. Something fell apart, and something slowly began to build itself up again. She stayed in Linköping for another year, but her body wanted to move on. Her soul longed to be away, home to France, to something familiar, but also to something new. But first she needed to save up money. She chose Stockholm. But it wasn't the city she remembered from her younger years. This time it was a refuge. She was broken after her father's suicide, her failed relationship with Lisa, and the deep rift with her mother. She felt rootless, exposed. For 2 years she lived without romantic relationships, no men, no desires that would lead her away from herself. She worked in headhunting, she kept up appearances, but the real work was happening inside her, in silence. She went to therapy, started meditating, went on a silent retreat, and for the first time she turned her gaze inward, for real. Slowly she began to shine from within. She went from wearing the victim's cloak to asking, "What is my responsibility in all this?" At the same time, another fire was awakened in her. She became involved in a volunteer project for vulnerable women. She listened to their stories, saw her own life reflected in them: addiction, abuse, insecurity. She wanted to be part of the change, make the world a better place, help others find their voice. Empowerment was no longer just a word, it became her path. But the thirst for love remained, a deep longing for closeness, for being someone else's home. After 2 years in Stockholm, when something inside her had begun to heal, she returned to France. She wasn't ready, not really. And like so many times before, she threw herself headlong into something new, without thinking it through. A man, a relationship, unhealthy. Confirmation rather than love, intensity rather than security. She didn't see it then, but soon it would become clear. She wasn't in France to find a man, she was there to find herself. Part 8: Self Sabotage, Shadows and Mirrors. France again. A step that was supposed to be the beginning of something new, but instead became a retreat into something old. Emilia was 32 when she met Lucien. He was younger than her, but embodied something familiar: chaos, partying, detachment, cocaine, girls. Everything she had promised herself she would leave behind. But it started innocently enough. A little flirting, a few nights, a feeling of being desired, needed. She thought it was just a fling. When you're lonely, when your dog, your most loyal companion, had passed away, when the world had shut down in the shadow of a pandemic, it's easy to confuse closeness with love. She didn't fall for Lucien. She fell out of herself. The sex was empty. It was as if he was sleeping with his own reflection. There was no presence, no tenderness, just a body that took, never met. She saw it, but chose to stay. She told herself it was just a hole to fill, but the price was high. Everything she had built up over the years in Stockholm, self-respect, self-awareness, presence, was quietly destroyed. She began to self-harm in the most subtle way, by staying in something that was eating away at her soul, bit by bit. When she finally broke up with him, Lucien refused to let go. He stalked her, called her from a hidden number, showed up outside her door. He went on for over a year. She blocked him, ignored him, but he refused to understand. It took a male friend to call Lucien and lie, saying that they were now dating, before it finally went quiet. Her friends, those safe, grounded people who never judged, offer her a refuge. A red Saab convertible, a house in Normandy, time to just be. She drove north with the wind in her hair and pain in her chest. In Normandy she cried, walked, wrote, let her body breathe. It took a few weeks to heal, a step in the right direction. And then came Marseille. In 2023 she moved south, not just geographically, but emotionally. She came to a city where the sea met the mountains, where the sun made her skin glow. It was there that she found her place. The summer was beautiful. She didn't date, she didn't need anyone. She had friends, conversations, evenings with wine, music, and laughter. For the first time in a long time, there was no chase, no void to fill. She was almost full. But then he showed up, Pascal, married, 19 years older, a man carrying his own shadows. They began a relationship not out of hope for the future, but out of reflection. He saw her weaknesses, she exposed his. It was never meant to last, but it became important anyway. Because the relationship with Pascal awakened something in her, a final reminder you can't hide anywhere. She saw her own patterns in him, his avoidance, his fear of vulnerability, his half truth. The relationship ended in early 2025, and it wasn't with sadness, but with clarity. Part 9. The Vision of the Future. She remembers it so clearly. An August day in Paris, the heat still clinging to her skin, but with that first hint of autumn in the wind. She was sitting in Saint Germain in a small restaurant with crisp tablecloths and a glass of wine reflecting the evening light. She took out a notebook and wrote a letter to herself. 10 years ahead, a promise, almost, or a prayer. Dear Emilia, she wrote, I know you're there now, in your home, with movement, with children's feet on the floor, with laughter in the rooms, with a man who holds you, sees you, and you're finally safe. Not because you're hiding, but because you've chosen this. She could see it in front of her. A home that smells of lemon, coffee, and wood. French in the soul and heart, but with Scandinavian simplicity and warmth. It is beautiful, but not perfect. Colorful children's things stands next to designer chairs. Food is cooked with friends. There is laughter, discussion, tears, and hugs. There is movement. Children of different ages, some her own, some perhaps bonus children. They talk about the world, about love, about art and war. The door is always open. Someone comes in with wine, someone else cooks. Life happens. And there he is, her husband, self employed, one of those people who doesn't need to say much to feel present, secure, a little shy but deep. A man who also carried burdens, but who's chosen to grow, not hide. They are best friends and lovers, with a sex life that is vibrant, playful, sensual, where neither has lost themselves, but both have found home. They have date nights, travel often, sometimes just the two of them, sometimes the whole family. Italy, New York, Barcelona, the Alps. She lectures, sells homes where others can feel safe, and writes books, articles, maybe an autobiography. They have a house in Sweden, an apartment in Paris, and a place in the south of France. Not for status, but because they love all the three places. All are home in different ways. And sometimes when the children are asleep and the music is playing softly from the kitchen, she sits down with a glass of wine in her hand. Maybe he's standing there, wiping down a cutting board. She looks at him and knows, I chose this. I chose myself. And I let go of what once tried to destroy me. It never turned out the way she thought it would. It turned out better. What does inner child healing mean, particularly now in the case of Emilia? And where would you even start?
Mhm. So, in general speaking, I will start with the general of inner child, what it is, and then we can dive into Emilia. So, inner child healing means tending the little girl or the little boy that are inside each and every one of us, who still feels unseen or unsafe or unworthy for love, for connection, for attention. And we are requested, we are invited to reparent these boys and girls that are living in us. So this is what inner child healing means in a very vast way of looking. For Emilia, it's really about landing back in her body and in her nerve system, and teaches herself that you are safe, you are whole for who you are, you are loved and seen by me, by the adult Emilia, and I will be the parent for you, both the father and the mother, that you didn't have and that didn't provide for you the basic needs of love, safety, and belonging. And I will now take this in responsibility and ownership to be this space for you whenever you need. And it can look in many different practices, in somatic work, body work, journaling, meditation, regression work, visualization. Where do you start? I would say you start by, if you want to do it yourself, you're always welcome to start really asking what it is that is repeating in my life, to really sit with yourself and journal about what it is that is repeating in my life, if it's in the space of relationships or career or whatever it is, and really start seeing what have I learned about myself in that space, in that sector, when I was smaller, and start bringing awareness. This is the beginning of all healing, because we cannot heal what we don't see, and we cannot heal what we don't understand and are aware to. So the first step is start to really look at ourselves, at our lives, and to see the common threads that are repeating in our life, and to start questioning, how old am I when I'm experiencing that same experience again and again? What sensations I have in my body? What thoughts patterns come to mind? How does it make me feel? What emotions are there? And to really start seeing the patterns. And then I would recommend to go to someone that can hold space for you to start exploring these memories and those moments in time, and bring awareness to the unknown, and start healing slowly those parts that are asking for attention and validation and love and care.
And in the case of Emilia, then, what do you feel? Where do you feel she needs to, the journey she's on, so speaking?
So in the case of Emilia, as I was mentioning, it's about because it's from such a young age, the absence of the male, and the dynamic of intimacy itself with the mom that is withdrawing, is that there is no safety. And so for Emilia in specifically, it will require work with her nerve system and with her body, and with rewiring her limiting beliefs about her self-worth and about security within herself and with other people. And this is beautiful work if she will choose to start walking in that path, and to come home to her body and to herself, and to her worth.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw that Emilia often sought external validation. And how do you think this can be turned into like a self-validation or some form of inner security for her? Because she has obviously done a lot of work. She also has been manifesting what her life will look like in the future.
Yeah. So like we said already, but we can wrap it up in a summary. So Emilia learned to seek worth outside of herself, like most of us when we are kids. Yeah. And because love for her was conditional growing up. Okay. She learned how she needs to be in order for someone to maybe stay, or maybe give her what it is that she needs. Okay. For her, the shift will need to be from giving it the power outside by understanding what she worth from the feedback of the outside, is to bring the inner authority inside. Yeah. Is to start really drop in her body and start listening. What is it that my body is asking me now? What is it that my heart is asking me now? And to start follow with her actions those signals. And this is the alignment that we were talking about in the beginning of the session. yeah, is when I'm really fully listening to my desires and my body, where it's feeling contraction. I don't go there. I cut this act that is making me feel like that. Or where it's feeling more expansion, I start taking more and more actions that will bring me this sensation and is aligned with this sensation. And so listening inward, choosing herself, building safety in her own body, in her own nerve system, then she's starting to reconnect with her inner voice, reconnect with her inner authority, and then it's not outsourced.
So if you were to give one piece of advice to listeners who recognize themselves in Emilia's journey, what would that be?
It's a really, really powerful question, and thank you for asking it so I can really give one point to everyone here. So whether or not you find yourself in Emilia's story per se, or if it's something similar, or if you're stuck in any loop or patterns, or repeating the same mistakes, you don't see me, but I'm doing like mistakes, it's not really mistakes, then I first want to tell you that there is nothing wrong with you and that you're not broken. And the only thing that you are is a human being. And this is mechanical, automatic, and universal. With that said, it doesn't have to continue to be that way. It doesn't have to continue to be the rest of your life and who you are. So I would say your actions, your patterns, your story, and not even your emotions are not who you are, not truly. And so when you bring awareness to it and you can start disattach from the identity of how you know yourself and the patterns and the men you have brought into your life, or the women you're attracting, or the work, or whatever it is that is repeating, when you can start bringing space and disattach, you can start rewire, heal, and act from a different space. And then you will also start seeing the result in the physical world and create the life for yourself that you wish. So it's all available to everyone, each and every one of us as human being. I'm not speaking from any pedestal. I'm still doing the work myself. I'm still bringing into my own awareness and consciousness what it is that is a blind spot for me. And I do so with my own mentors and with my own guides. But it is available. We don't have to keep repeating and suffering. We can rewire for something that is better, for the heaven that is unfamiliar.
And that's a beautiful way of summing it up more.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, Henrik. Thank you for having me again and allowing me to do what I love to do, which is talking about these topics, but also like really be a space and a voice to really bring this far and wide in this podcast. And and thank you for having me.
Emilia's story is not just about pain, but about resilience. Through chaos, betrayal, and loss, she chose to heal. And in her vision of the future, she reminds us all, it never turns out the way we thought it would. Sometimes it turns out better. I see you next time on 34O. Stay present and stay safe.